We're gonna do chapter 16 real quick, and by chapter 16 I mean just the garage. The garage is a very, very large portion of chapter 16 outside of all the movement. There's a couple of save loads and stuff, but this chapter is far too long and story heavy for me to really want to do like a complete chapter. So we're just gonna do the major important segment at the start here that we can kind of get out of the way.
Only put the war on pause.
The beginning here can be pretty straightforward. I do synergy on Valk, so you're going to have to do some sort of micromanaging with your equipment. What you do is synergy for Magnify. If you really wanted to, you can revert this to Lightning right now. I wouldn't do that just yet. Also, this is coming off of the same menu that I would have for Valkyrie, so the equipment should be the same. Obviously, this would be slightly different, but I'll show you the initial loadout. The HP up is not necessary. It can be pretty much anything else. The luck ups aren't necessary on Barrett either, but it can be anything else. You're going to want binding for a lot of different places. This allows you to have access to an additional berserk just in case. Healing revival, you're going to want lightning magnify. This will, of course, be synergy. So this is what it would normally end up being once you get done with the menu here. Like I said, this can also be lightning, MP absorb, but I would just leave it on wind for simplicity's sake. Here's Tifa. First strike is needed. Ice elemental isn't needed, but for the most part, her weapon is what is set up pretty much the correct way for most of the game. The refocus is needed from Valk, so you will have it regardless. HP up. ATB assist is needed from Valk as well. The fights I do are kind of weird. But the only thing I'll come in here is Magnify Aeroga.
We're here to rescue Aerith, remember?
So the garage is pretty straightforward. We're going to be using Wind Magnify because it hits at a distance, and that way Cloud won't need to come up line of sight, so we can take care of use Tifa's movement speed in combination with Cloud's long-range attacks to get through everything. So we're just going to ATB boost right off the bat, arrow, and we're just going to zip on out of here. We could be using the good parrying method, but I'm just doing it slower, so it's a little bit easier to... you could somersault here, yeah, I guess. That's not the best way to handle it. So, I mean, I'll show this off a couple of times and reset all the way back. I should have a save, that's fine. This fight right here kind of sucks, no matter what you do.
Let's be smart.
Because these operators can give you some really awful patterns.
All set. I see it. Got your number.
Oh, that's awful.
We make a decent
Those third-class soldiers are the worst. They're the biggest problem in the entire place.
Go all out.
No more games. It's over.
You're done.
So here we can spam a lot of arrow and arrows. Just like, get the stagger, spam arrow, get the stagger, spam arrow. Easy peasy.
Good job.
This one right here can be pretty difficult. You want to start with arrow and go into a regular attack here. That way you can build up your ATB. And then you want to start arrow guying either the troopers or the dogs. That way you can get a lot of staggers going on and then just spam arrow as you please.
Going in. Too bad.
But a lot of these fights just devolve into spam commands faster, basically. You could be a little more tactical about it. I would not use Catastrophe here because it takes a lot of time to start up. And you're not going to have it... Let's just system chapter select. Since I forgot to place down a load before I started. But yeah... we'll go back down the stairs and do the garage a couple of times. You're going to want to start with ATB boost right off the bat with that first fight. Arrow magnify, then arrow magnify the other ones. You can use arrow magnify, but it's not really going to do you anything special. It gives you a little bit bigger of a hitbox, but
somehow I don't think it's all for us.
Honestly, it's not going to help you out, I would say.
What about the ceasefire?
That only put the war on pause.
Oh man, my nose is just stuffy today. Ugh. Friggin', it's been unseasonably cold down here, so I guess I'm a little bit of a Snotsville, I
We're
guess.
here to rescue Aerith, remember?
Nothing too bad, though.
We don't need more attention than what we're gonna get.
So I'll save
We need
right
to be
here
smart.
before we get into the cutscene. There is a out of bounds you can do with some weird like jank save loading and combat checking, but as far as I know, it doesn't get you any sort of skip. So we'll just save right here
We'll
and head
remake
on
it
in.
later.
So you want an ATB boost right off the bat, just like I'm going for. ATB boost right off the bat. You might have perfect ATB, but the odds of you having perfect ATB are pretty much impossible. So Aeroga can also be used, like I said. It can lead to a slightly better fight.
I see it.
You're probably going to end up having to take care of one of those idiots like that.
Let's keep moving.
So we're going to actually come over here, ATB boost and Aerora, and start charging Aeroga.
Calling wind.
So that's a little bit better of a setup.
Big guy. Giving up yourself.
That thunder I hear?
But it leads to some weird things. That fight right there kind of sucks, and I hate it. But there's really not much you can do about it. So we can just, like, arrow, whatever.
Just in case.
Bring it.
Calling wind. Storm's coming.
So, I mean, you can really just... It's basically spam
gloves
spells until you find the loop you like. I usually just use arrow magnify on pretty much everything. The only things I don't arrow magnify are the big boys. The third class troopers are going to get Aeroga every time. At least, you're going to want to at least throw out one of those at the very beginning. But you kind of see how it goes, right? It's just spam wind spells. Honestly, I do have somewhat of a route, but to be perfectly honest, the garage can be pretty fluid in terms of what gets hit by what spell, because you're relying on Magnify here to do most of your work. And Magnify is not reliable in which way it targets. It is, but it's not, right? So you ATB boost right off the bat, arrow, get out of here with Tifa. Then you want to Aeroga these guys. If you get really lucky, you'll get all of them in one shot. If you get unlucky, that happens. I just
Keep moving.
roll back here, ATB boost, arrow, and start casting Aeroga. But you kind of see what the problem here is, right? True Strike into Somersault. Normally,
That's the way to do it.
you want to get both of those third-class troopers together, but they've been acting up pretty bad recently, so we're gonna just Aeroga the dogs here, whatever.
Going in.
So whatever we got left is just scrub, so Arrow Magnify should take care of it. The Elite Grenadiers will go down to Arrow Magnify. Aeroga is basically needed for the dogs or the third-class troopers. Arrow Ra will take care of the Riot Troopers and a few other odds and
Coming
ends.
through.
So make sure to keep that in mind, kind of like what you're targeting. You're wanting to loop in a very specific way. That should be fine. See? And basically, as long as you have MP Absorb on, you can just spam whatever. You mainly want to go with Arrow Ra Magnify or Aeroga Magnify over Arrow Magnify. Arrow Magnify you should be using to clean up when you know there's only a few enemies left alive and they have a little bit of HP, because you can just boop real quick and kill them all. You could do Ice Magnify, you could do Fire Magnify, you could do Thunder Magnify, but you should have Wind from the previous boss. And because it doesn't require line of sight, I find it's really good for this segment. So we're going to arrow. I'll do this one more. Yeah, nice camera angle, by the way. And then you can just, you know, suffer the world's worst camera angle. So you can buffer your parry inputs.
Let's keep moving.
So we'll just Aeroga Magnify. This is what I normally do here.
Let's be smart.
Because what you're trying to do is get them both around the same hairpin. But I've been having a lot of issues with that happening recently. Switch over to Cloud here. game. Okay, so we're gonna do the strat I just... That was the way I normally do it, but I guess the game is not having any sort of fun today.
Let's finish this. Scatter.
So you want to stick with Cloud so they get pulled in together.
Now you're in for it.
And I'd say this is probably the easiest way
That's a win.
to make sure you're fine. Is just throw a somersault into them. You could do a bunch of cute shit, but just somersault them. If you get them grouped together, there's no reason to futz around and risk anything.
Let's finish this.
Arrow.
You're mine. Calling wind.
Barrett. Screw everybody. Okay.
Let's go.
So these rooms can be pretty fluid. It's just kind of like mess around with the wind spells until you find a combination that works for you. If you really want to, you can go with a completely different setup, but I really wouldn't. This is the problem, though, is you end up with...
Serious.
Wind is pretty nasty with flinging targets about, so it can end up making your life a lot harder than it needs to be. But there you go, that's the garage. I know I really didn't give like a this is the way to do it. Just spam arrow magnify to victory for the most part. If you get a hold of a dog or a third class, just go with Airgun magnify. You can use catastrophe here, but cloud spells are just as good and you don't need to bother with a catastrophe change. I mean, I guess if you use catastrophe on if you use Catastrophe on Valkyrie, or if you use Catastrophe on Specimen, you could go that way, but I really wouldn't suggest it. Tifa's Somersault does more than enough damage, and it's very useful in a lot of fights. If you're paying attention in some of those instances, you can just have her Somersault like one or two of the remaining enemies. Cloud will also often get his Cross Slash going, so you have a lot of tools. But that'll be it for the garage segment. This one isn't very complex. As a matter of fact, it's not very straightforward either. It's just spin to win, keep spamming, you know, into victory type thing. But I'll see you guys later, and I hope this helped. Peace.